Welcome back to another episode of Expect to Be Moved with the Experienced Real Estate Partners joining me here today. Today we thought we'd have a little fun with some topics that real estate agents often hear from sellers and buyers. So we were discussing some, war stories and just things that become a little bit confusing, I guess, for the consumer and buyers because they're not in the industry. So we're not poking fun by any means, but some things for us we hear repeatedly over and over again. So we just kind of sat down today and talked about what are some of those things that we hear from a buyer or a seller that we know they think has logic behind it, but we know for a fact is the opposite of what actually happens in the real estate business. So are you ready to tackle a couple of those today? One of the ones that the first thing that came to mind, and the reason why this came to mind is we're starting to hear more and more recently about the market softening. So when the market starts to soften, what happens is there's that stage when a market shifts that the people that are the front line of those changes oftentimes get caught in not making their changes fast enough to not get damaged by a shifting market, right? So what I'm talking about is, let's say my example would be in 2008 when the market started to crash. It took almost 2 years for us to sell a lot of the listings that we had at that time because it was almost like an overnight shift from it being a seller's market to it becoming a buyer's market because the market had crashed and no one was buying. So those sellers were still pre-programmed to what had been happening for the 5, 6, 7 years ramp up before we had the rug pulled out from underneath us. So they didn't necessarily believe that it was going to happen to their house, that it was happening at all, or that maybe they were not going to be the exception to the rule. So a lot of times people at the very beginning stages of a change like that want to ignore what the agents are bringing to. So with that in mind, right now we're kind of starting to feel in our area, and I'm seeing it nationally in different pockets as well, is that when a market softens, the people that came on the market at the prices of when the market was red hot oftentimes don't sell, at least not right away, and probably not for the price that they're looking to get. So one of the things that came up when we were asking each other, what do buyers and sellers often say that make us cringe, because we know if we let them to go on to believe what they're saying, that it's ultimately going to hurt them. And the number one thing was, why should I reduce my price of my house when I haven't either A, had hardly any showings, or B, had any offers? I'll think about a price adjustment once I've gotten some offers. That one comes up a lot to listing agents. So I'm gonna let you guys weigh in. I'll weigh in on some of my experiences
So
with
the
that
perception sometimes of other buyers is they're just going to be stubborn on that price, and it just sticks there. They can't move the needle at all. And until we can talk them into moving the needle, there's just this perception.
So why do you think it is, Curtis, that what is the theory behind the seller thinking, well, we don't even know yet if our house is not overpriced because we haven't received a lowball offer? That's kind of what they're thinking. An offer means, well, we don't know yet because somebody's not offered us a price that's lower. So if we don't have somebody that's doing that, lowballing us, then why would we reduce our price, right? That's where I think it's coming from, because they're expecting lowball offers.
We have the tools to look at. In the MLS, we have a hit counter. We can show them, look, this many people looked at your house. We're not getting any showings.
Right.
We've got Zillow that gives us the same stamp. So we sort of have the tools that we need to show them, maybe to help.
Yeah. And I think two things, depending on when you've sold the house before, things are different nowadays because buyers qualify your home online first, right? They're going to look at the listings. They're going to decide if they're going to spend their time to go see it or not. And then particularly coming off of a market like we've been experiencing, would you agree that buyers are not thinking that a seller is necessarily negotiable when they're asking a high price, and so they don't waste their time on an offer?
And a lot of times,
Talk about that.
they don't want to insult the person selling their house.
Correct.
So they think if they drop the price by $25,000, it's going to be an insult. It's going to hurt their chances of purchasing the property.
What do you think, Tamara?
And I think a lot of people as well have already looked at houses at that point, and they're comparing the photos to what they've seen. Well, the 123 Main Street had a much nicer kitchen, and that house was $250,000 less. So that stops them from even walking through the door to look at the house, because it just shuts it down right there.
Have you ever experienced when you guys are showing houses to buyers and perhaps it was priced at an escalated price? So a lot of times what happens is when we're doing comparables, we're bringing in past sales of a year back. And a lot of times that's a different market a year ago, either to your benefit or to your detriment. And so if you're looking at some of these houses that maybe you listed at, let's say, 350 and sold at 400, and so theoretically, as a seller, you're thinking, well, they got 400, and my house is on a better lot, so we should ask 400, and then we're going to get 425. I mean, that's kind of what people think a lot, right, when we're on these appointments. So is it fair to say that your experience when showing houses to people at a particular price, that the buyer is assuming the seller is expecting more than list price?
I think coming off of the past 2 years, it's almost a given that people automatically think that they're going to have to come up in price in order to win their offer.
Especially if the agent's not setting the expectation on how the market really is today.
So then it would be a detriment to price at the complete top of the escalation of what all the comparables were, because the buyer is still pre-programmed until we've seen a soft market for a minute, right? Because we've had bouts of soft markets and then they pop back up. So I would think it's fair to say the buyer we experience is predetermining, oh, well, if you're asking 4, they're expecting more. And now they're looking at the other houses. Well, if yours is 425 in theory, because if I have to compete, I'm gonna have to go up. So what are my other options at 425? When really you were a 350 house the whole time. And maybe if some buyers particularly had a reason that they needed to be in that neighborhood, or they needed that particular model of house, or perhaps you had a pool or something special that is going to make people fight over it, then there are those one-off, two-off people that are going to pay more than the normal market would pay, which then creates these escalated prices. Right. So that's why we're saying it makes us chuckle, but not in a funny way. It's like sometimes we get sick to our stomach when we hear that pushback from a seller saying, I'm not getting results, so therefore we don't want to do anything. And to us, the number one thing to do when you're not getting results is to make a change, right? You gotta not just sit there and let the market make you a stale listing. So we need to do something to make a change, rather that be enhancing the property, rather that be making some of the changes that maybe we suggested in the beginning that sellers don't want to mess with. They think, oh, it's a hot market, and which it was, right? So we did go through some stages where sellers really didn't have to do a lot of things to get the house sold. But when we see a softening of the market, we definitely have to retract on that idea and get some things done. Paint's changed, flooring's changed, things like that. Anything else that you would think a buyer, any other motivations, or what does it trigger a buyer to go through a house that has stayed at the same price for a while?
The only thing I can think of is that they would be able to get a deal on it at this point. Yeah. Because at some point there's a stigma that's attached to the house. Why has it been on?
That's what I'm getting at.
What's wrong with it?
That's what I'm getting at. So if you don't move your price, I've had people ask me, does it look bad for us to change our price this quick? I mean, you were just doing a comparable, right? And you asked about a house that had dropped
Correct.
pretty quickly. So it can swing one way or the other. So you can either go, because that is a concern. Sellers think sometimes, well, what does it look like if I dropped my price right away? And there's two schools of thought to that. Mine is, I would rather a seller move their price sooner than later if we've put it out there and we've exposed it, and we can show that the eyeballs have been there, the links have been open, the photographs have been reviewed, but then they're not taking the step to the next thing to go show the house and then perhaps make offers, then we've got a break in the link of putting it up for sale, to getting it under contract. So there's a disconnect somewhere. The disconnect is usually location, price, or condition. Would you agree?
For sure.
So price, of course, is the easiest thing to fix. Sometimes with price, you have to fix the price more than what it would be to fix the condition, just to kind of get that going again. But I think sometimes sellers are afraid that it's going to have a stigma, that you moved it too quick. What I have seen, and you guys correct me if you haven't seen this with your buyers, is the opposite effect of, well, gosh, they've been on the market for 60 days, 90 days, and they haven't changed their price at all.
Right.
They must not be very realistic, or they must not be in tune with the market, or they're not negotiable.
They're just fishing.
Yeah. Which brings me to another topic that we hear all the time. That is, we don't really have to sell. We've got plenty of time. So let's just try the price. Let's just put it out there and see what happens, and we'll just wait until we find the right buyer that's willing to pay our price. How does that work out?
Number of days on market goes up.
Then you get lowball. We got a chance for a big lowball, I think, because the longer that you have that, days on market, then now someone's like, well, maybe I can just, offer
Yeah.
50K, 100, I don't know, something, really low,
People want to know what's wrong with the house.
because they're
That stigma,
thinking,
yeah.
So the mindset, the sellers are saying, we have time to get our price. So what we're hearing is they think the longer we wait for the unicorn buyer to come in, the better our chances are of us getting a higher price. The reality is, the longer you wait, the lower your house is going to sell for. Would y'all agree?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very, very seldom that it's the exception
right?
than the rule that extended amount of time on the market is going to enable you to find the right buyer, right? All right, anybody else got another one, or am I taking them all?
Those are good.
They're good ones.
All right, how about, you two are both new construction specialists, and we all have different opinions on this. I know what some of you are going to say. How about when they say, I don't need to have an inspection, it's a new construction. Why would I get the house inspected? What do you think about that? Is that a good idea?
Did you
to
want us
save
to
the-
name names of builders for that?
Right.
Seriously.
Yes.
It's enough of an issue that there's a builder out there right now that won't let you do
That's
it.
what I'm talking about. That's
So it's good money spent. If you're spending $500,000 on the house, or whatever the number is, to spend $500 to make sure that it is just how it should be, in peace of mind. And they won't put radon systems in unless you test for radon. Most of these builders. So there's just so many reasons to do it.
Yeah. Would you say in your experience of building that there has been plenty of things found on an inspection of a new construction house?
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Radon is a big one.
Even in,
Sewer lateral is another one. We've seen hammers and
Sure.
things down
Sure.
the sewers. Same thing with the HVAC. You see a lot of
Sure,
stuff end up
HVAC.
down in those vents.
Yes. Well, you got to think about the builders hiring laborers, right? And subcontractors out there. And so you don't know which subcontractors or laborers were at your house and what their work ethic is, or if they're shoving their McDonald's down your vents or not. I mean, it happens,
It
right?
happens.
It happens.
It happens.
they use it as a trash.
Yeah, and there's times that there's just mistakes made, and you have more leverage as a buyer with the builder to find out these things before you close, and then get them on your builder walkthrough punch list. Now, Curtis, you often like your people to do it later, right? Because before their warranty walk, well, not before their warranty walk, before their end of their
Correct.
first year warranty
At
is
month
done,
9 or 10.
because the house is settling in a little bit at
Correct.
that time. So that's another way of doing it, is if you don't do it up front, because like Curtis mentioned, there is a builder in town that is making it almost impossible for a buyer to hire a building inspector and jump through the hoops that they have to jump through in order to access their house to inspect it, which is a red flag. If you have people that are not willing to let another professional come through and double check the work, you might not be dealing with the most reputable builder, which is
Yeah.
going to give you a lot more trouble to deal with at a warranty call versus prior to them taking your money for the house. So, word of wisdom, I would more than ever inspect those houses than the ones that are giving you free access to come inspect them, because you don't hold people back for a reason. You're usually hiding something, is why.
For sure.
So, any other stories come to mind about inspections on new construction?
I think mostly for me, it's with the inspections on new construction. We've seen a lot of radon. We've seen issues, well, things, large things in the sewer lateral, in the vents. I don't think I've had anything construction-wise. I've not had any structural issues in the inspections.
Yeah, we have. We've had some vents not connected. We've had some issues with HVAC not triggering, appliances. That's another thing. A lot of the builder grade appliances go out pretty quickly in the first few years. So we're kind of conditioned, the old timers are kind of conditioned to these appliances will last for 10, 15, 20 years before they go out. But more than likely, a lot of them are going out in the first 5 years. So even home warranties are not a bad idea necessarily on new construction, because you are dealing with a lot of expensive items that the manufacturer's warranty is going to be done in a year. So it might not be a bad idea to add that home warranty plan on towards the end of that year, maybe do a couple year home warranty plan just to have yourself covered in the first few years of occupying that house.
Yeah.
What about this one? You guys get, I don't want to deal with inspections. I want to sell my house as is.
Yes.
What does that tell you? What does that mean to you? What do you think your buyers think about?
I think it's a red
That.
flag immediately.
Yeah, they think it's a distressed
There's some-
property. There's a
yep.
reason.
Yeah, there's a reason. So when you say, and most of the time when we ask, what is your reasoning for that?
Yeah.
Why do you want to sell it as is? Are you aware of something? Well, no, I just don't want to deal with it. It's not a new house. They should know that they're buying a house that's going to have issues. It's not a brand new house. And our response is, let me just tell you, if you don't have a particular reason, then stating the house is in as-is condition, seller to make no repairs, that oftentimes is making the buyer feel like you are aware of something and that you're not disclosing it. So we tend to try to shy away from that language in a listing, if at all possible, unless there is a good reason for it, because we don't want to give it a bad connotation, right? We're trying to help you. Now, when we receive offers, we can set the stage of, at this price or with these terms, seller is willing to take this, but he's A, not going to be nickel and dime during the inspection, or B, not planning on doing any repairs. You can come in and
Yeah.
look,
Only repairs up to X
but
dollars.
yeah, we're not going to take these terms and go into renegotiations with you. To me, that's more the time to introduce it. Would you not agree?
I agree with
It's
that.
easier to have those conversations with somebody that's already invested enough in the house to make the offer, right? Because they're already attached enough to make the offer. So then have those tough conversations, and instead of repelling
Yeah.
potentially everybody before they even come see the house.
Yeah.
So Lauren, you're in a different position than us.
Yes.
You're on the lending side of things.
Yes. So don't tell me about those inspections.
Yes.
No.
Well, what are some things that you think your buyers
Yeah.
have wrong misconceptions about, or
Yeah.
kind of have attitude with when applying
Yeah.
for a loan, that they get frustrated with? What are some of those topics that
So this
you
is on
see
the flip
over
side
and
now.
over?
So we're talking about sellers
Yep.
and their homes, and now we're on to buyers and what are their misconceptions. So again, it's setting the stage. What type of market is it? Now are we in a seller's market now? So maybe we need to talk about what is the max purchase price you might be comfortable, because here we are, we might be competing against other offers. And of course, I'm coordinating with your agent, so are you. But let's talk about what the monthly payment looks like, so that we really do know what your max is. Is your max 400, or would 425 be okay if you were competing? Would 450 be okay? So it's kind of like beginning right away, so that we don't run into those issues on the back end. But
Would you say most of your buyers are payment buyers, or are they price point buyers?
well, everyone should be a payment buyer, because this is about what is your month to month going to look like.
Which you're not
So
gonna be.
yeah, so I think a lot of times when people just open up the internet and start looking at beautiful houses, they think that they are a purchase price buyer and like, oh, I think I'm going to be in the 500s, I'm going to be in the 600s because those are the houses that I like. But really, let's break it down based on what interest rates are, based on what the taxes are for that property, throw in what homeowners insurance will be, and then I can get you to what that monthly payment is. And you might find out that you actually could go higher than that. You're actually comfortable with a bit higher, or you might find out you're actually comfortable with a bit lower than that. I better start looking at houses that are more in the X price range. So really, if your loan officer, if your lender is worth their salt, they're going to be talking to you about the monthly payment. That should be your guide.
So what are some things though that they come to the table preconditioned in their brain? I'm not letting you off the hook.
Well,
Preconditioned
yeah.
in their brain that you as a loan professional know
Right.
that they're not.
Right. So
Thinking
this
correctly.
comes up a lot with buyers who have purchased homes in the past, and maybe even a long time ago, and they're not remembering what all goes into the mortgage loan approval process. And not to say that it's scary, it's just like a little bit of a homework project. So you have to kind of be aware that you're going to come in and bring your pay stubs and your bank statements and your W-2s, and if you're self-employed, you're going to show all your tax returns. I have on occasion, again, I prep everyone ahead of time of what this process is going to look like, but I'll get people that are like, my last time I bought a house, I didn't have to show my
Yes.
W-2s. I didn't. I'm like, well, what
Things
kind
have
of loan did you
changed.
get? Things have changed. You know,
Yeah.
guidelines have changed. The industry has changed. You know, we're not trying to do stated income, stated assets. We're going to actually have you show it, documentation. I think self-employed is where the most
Yeah.
questions come up,
Yes.
and that's because of the tax returns.
Right.
Most business owners are familiar with how write-offs work and how that might work in a loan approval process, but occasionally, you know, they need to understand that we're not looking at all the money you brought in last year. If you wrote off everything in the kitchen sink, unfortunately, we're only looking at that qualifying income. So if your tax returns really only show $30,000, even though you know you made a lot more than that, then we're basing your loan approval on $30,000. So that has been a bummer with a few clients. So what I typically say is if you're self-employed for the 2 years leading up to you buying a home, make sure you're showing the most possible income that you can on your tax returns. Writing off everything is going to be detrimental if you're planning to get financing.
Very good.
Don't yell at me about that.
Yes. And one thing I learned once I got my mortgage license going through the licensing course
Yes.
was it kind of the light bulb went off on, oh, that's why it seems like sometimes the processors or the loan officers are asking for
Yeah.
repetitive of some things. Like
Yeah.
I already gave you that. And then the buyer gets frustrated like, oh, is the left hand not talking to the right hand? Like I provided that information.
You really shouldn't have to provide the same exact document. You know, if somebody
Usually
said,
there's
I need
something
your
missing about it.
May 15th pay stub, and if you've already submitted that, then we should be good. We do have it. But sometimes people, you know, they're closing on their home. The process takes 60 days or something, and so then now we need your updated bank statement. The next bank statement has come out.
Right.
So we'll say, can you send your most recent bank statements? Well, I already sent those. Why are you?
Right.
I know, but a new statement has come out. So
Exactly. So
occasionally
it
there
feels
can be-
repetitive, but in actuality,
it's
it's
just the
not. It's
newest,
either
yeah.
something new or something was missing. I know one thing that I've seen a lot in the
Yeah.
past was when the consumer would deliver some of that stuff, they would print like the first 2 pages of their bank statement.
yeah.
And it's like, no, it says one of 12.
Yeah.
You got to send
All
all 12. You
even
can't
if
just
there are
send
blank pages.
Yeah, you just can't send what you think is the meat. Right?
Most of my clients are aware. I not only talk to them about that, but I verbally write that all out for them. And, you know, occasionally I'm like, remember, this is a little homework process. We gotta do all the things, and it's not coming from me. That's an underwriting thing. We need all pages. Or just so you know, those bank statements can uncover more questions. So even though I might not ask you for that exact statement again, they might say, what is that large deposit there on March 13th? There is a $60,000 deposit. We need the source of where that came from. Well, why do I have to show that? Because it's a large deposit, so we have to kind of follow the trail. All normal. All lenders will ask you for it.
Make sure they're not money laundering or something like that.
Yeah, it has to do with money laundering. So.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So.
All right, so the last one on my mind is actually going to resolve itself here, I think, pretty soon with our changes that are coming with the whole commission
Yeah.
structure and how consumers work with buyers. But one big one what we've had for years is, well, I don't really want to commit to an agent. I'm just going to talk to a bunch of agents, and whoever finds me the house will make the commission.
It's like the Wild West.
How does that work for you when somebody tells you that? What does that do to you as a professional agent? What's your first thought?
I haven't had that.
You haven't had
I
somebody
have
say
not
that?
had that. No, I have not had that, and I've never even. Isn't that terrible that I've never even considered that could happen?
Yeah,
And
happens
now
all
it's
the
going to
time.
be a big thing.
Well,
for
now they
sure.
won't be able to do that.
Get that a lot on lead sources. If
Yes.
we get leads that come
Yeah.
in, we get that a lot. It's like, I don't want to commit to you. If you show it to me, I'll buy it from you. And we have to explain the whole thing is that we have to have this document in writing. Even if it's just for a specific home, we need to have an agency agreement in hand. But you're right, we could just, there were people that went willy-nilly before. and
Yes.
Just,
And
You're just in
to
a
me,
similar boat as a
it definitely
yeah.
doesn't put them on our priority list,
Sure.
right?
No.
We're not going to be ringing everybody that we've talked to a couple times and they have no intention of committing to you if you've showed them a house and that you get paid on. So basically it kind of comes across to us like, I don't care if you do a bunch of work and you don't get paid. I'm thinking about me and I'm going to go find whatever I want. And if you're the one that opened the door, then maybe you'll get the commission. That doesn't make you a VIP priority, going to tell you about coming soon listing stuff that's underground, the office exclusives. We're not going to really necessarily go out of our way to find you something and do all this work when you're already telling us that you don't even care what we get paid or if we get paid, right? It kind of ruffles the feathers a little bit of agents. And every once in a while we'll stumble across something, they happen to be in our queue and it works out. But most of the time it's kind of like, if you don't think that I'm valuable enough to commit to me and let us work thoroughly for you as an agent, then maybe we're not suited for each other.
I see that on our listings sometimes. Somebody will call and say, hey, you've got this listing, XYZ. Can you show it to me?
Yes,
And then when you bring up the buyer's agency agreement, oh, I already have an agent.
right. Well, we
type
also
thing.
get,
Or,
hey, I wanted to see if I could see you this house at 2:00 today. Okay, are you working with an agent? Yeah, but I don't really want to bug them.
right. Right.
I feel like I've been bugging them a lot lately. They've been showing me so many houses, and it's Sunday. I don't want to bug them, or it's Saturday. I don't want to bug them.
Right.
Okay, so you're bugging another agent. I get it more when it's a listing agent, but sometimes people will call us and ask us to see someone else's listing
Yeah,
Right.
that's
and tell us that they're not going to commit to us. They have an agent, but they want to inconvenience us instead of their own agent. So don't do that. That doesn't come across real well to us anyway. But sometimes we do have to be the fiduciary for a seller and go ahead and make it possible for the person to see the listing.
Yeah.
But we would rather know that up front that you have an agent versus you say you don't have an agent and then later say you do have an agent, because that can cause problems between the agents themselves, based on who procured the sale. If your agent wasn't involved at all, we get you interested enough to write the property, and again, this is all before August 17th when these things are going to change. But usually, there could be an issue on claiming the commission because your agent wasn't involved in procuring the sale. So there's things that consumers think and do differently than what industry people think and do.
Yeah.
So my best advice is to interview agents, pick an agent that you feel you can trust, and then trust your agent.
For sure.
And you will have the best experience you can possibly have versus trying to game the system and game everybody, because what we see is that usually ends up hurting you in the long run. So that's my advice for the day. Thanks for joining us, and catch us next time on the next Expect to Be Moved.